بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Read in the name of your Lord who created. He created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most honorable, who taught to write with the pen, taught man what he did not know. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Last night, I had briefly touched upon that verse that I had just recited. So tonight, we're going to delve into it a bit further, and we're going to discuss the importance of knowledge and seeking knowledge within Islam. How emphasized is it in the Quran, and how emphasized is it through Muhammad wa al Muhammad? To which extent do they encourage and almost demand us to be in a position of power through knowledge? Because with knowledge, you gain confidence, and when you're confident, you're a powerful person. So that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And I want to, just to a quick paraphrase of what happened yesterday. I discussed the position of Nabi Adam was so great that the angels had to do sujood to Nabi Adam. And the reason I quoted that was because Nabi Adam, not that he just teach him the names of things, but because of Nabi Adam's ability to teach, maintain knowledge, transfer knowledge, that enabled him, that put him in a position, where the angels do sujood to him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. So that position where Nabi Adam was able to absorb knowledge as well as retain and transfer that knowledge, put him in a position and in a status where the angels did sujood to him. So now I'm going to ask a question that maybe we've never asked ourselves before. Something that we've always accepted as truth. A prophet as great as ours, and the Quran, which the first verses that were sent were teaching man to read and to encourage man to read. And from the first prophet to the last prophet, ilm is encouraged. Is our prophet illiterate? Does our prophet not know how to read and not know how to write? In a lot of circles, in a big portion of the Islamic world, including within Tashayyu', many people have the idea that our prophet is illiterate, that he does not know how to read and write. Because the prophet is referred to in the Quran as an ummi. And this is translated into meaning he's illiterate, in the sense he does not know how to read and write. This is one understanding of this term as it is used in the Quran. Another understanding of that term is he is from Mecca. And another name of Mecca is what? al-Qura. So the second meaning is because the Prophet is from Mecca, and therefore he's from al-Qura, the mother of towns. Therefore he is Ummi, because a person who's from Toronto is a Torontonian or something. Person from Ottawa is a Ottawan. A person from Mecca, okay, yeah, exactly. A person from Canada is Canadian. Thank you, brother. That was perfect, easy. And so the Prophet, being from Mecca, is referred to as a Ummi. If you're from Iraq, you're an Iraqi. You're from Lebanon, you're Lebanese. You're from Pakistan, you're Pakistani. In this sense, this is a second interpretation of when the Prophet is referred to as an Ummi. And this is supported by a chapter in the Quran, chapter 62, verse 2, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? It is who raised among the inhabitants of Mecca, Ummiyin. He is who raised from the inhabitants of... So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the Prophet as an Ummi because he's a resident of this town called Mecca, and a messenger from among themselves, who recites to them his communications. Do you know any person that's illiterate that recites communications? And purifies them and teaches them the book. Do you know anyone that teaches from a book that does not know how to read and write? And teaches him from the book and the wisdom, although they're before they're in certain error. So, this is a second. What we're asking, how did he teach them? How did he teach them from the book? How does he have what knowledge? And yet, at the same time, he's considered illiterate. We're going to ask a few more questions. How could he be a teacher, yet he does not know himself how to read and write? Is the Prophet, who we say is the greatest of all creations, and can control all the atoms and molecules in this world, and have this ultimate power, yet he does not know how to read and write? This statesman, have you ever met a statesman who does not know how to read and write? A politician, like he was, that does not know how to read and write? A person who introduced law, that does not know how to read and write? Have you ever met a businessman? Was he not one of the merchants of Sayyidah Khadija? Being her merchant and her businessman, have you ever met a businessman that does not know how to count? We're also going to ask the question, after the Battle of Badr, we always talk about prisons and reform systems. Well, the Prophet introduced this. He captured those people of Badr. After capturing them, he says, you want to be released? We're all very familiar. What does he tell them? To be released, you have to teach 10 Muslimin how to read and write. So how is he encouraging the Muslim people to learn how to read and write and liberating the captives through this deal, yet he himself did not have the ability or the capacity or the strength or the patience to learn 28 letters? And the Quran, what does it clearly say? Oh, do you order the people to do what you do not do yourself? Oh, you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do? Is the Prophet encouraging people to learn how to read and write, yet he himself does not know how to read and write? The first verses that I started with, read in the name of your Lord who created. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling, He's commanding Rasulullah to read. Does Rasulullah disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, I don't read and not read? So, there's a third interpretation now of what the Prophet means when being referred to as Ummi. The third interpretation is he is Ummi in the sense that he was not educated in a recognized administration. He didn't go to Auto University or Harvard or Yale or any recognized institution of knowledge. He doesn't have a master's or a PhD. In this sense, he is Ummi. In the sense that he does not have a formally recognized level of education. But this does not go against Rasulullah. This proves that he's Rasulullah. Because if anyone was able to teach him, that means someone is superior to him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's teacher is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solely. No one teaches Rasulullah except Allah. So if he was educated in a formal institution, maybe he would not be recognized as a Ummi in the sense he doesn't have that designation. But then, therefore, someone was able to teach him something that he did not know, which is impossible. So Ummi also in this sense. And now I'm going to get into a topic, and I'm going to talk about the reality of it is, Bani Umayyah puts Fox News to shame, and puts CNN to shame. The propaganda they know how to use is far beyond the propaganda we see today. A simple example, Amir al-Mu'mineen, we all know him for his salah and his ibadah. Imagine when he died in sujood, we all are very familiar. The people of Sham said, did he used to pray? So how strong is the propaganda machine in order to question the salah of Amir al-Mu'mineen? So do not be puzzled why we've always had the understanding that the Prophet is illiterate. Not only in the circles of Ahlul Sunnah and Jama'ah, but also within Shia circles, this belief exists. And there's a very specific reason for that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Amir al-Mu'mineen is the door of knowledge, right? And the Prophet is the city of knowledge. According to that famous hadith, I am the gate, I'm the city of knowledge, and Aliun Babu, and Ali is the gate. In Tashayyu'ah, in our literature, you will not find one hadith where Amir al-Mu'mineen or any of the Imams teach Rasulullah anything. It's non-existent. It doesn't happen. It goes against our aqidah. No one can teach Rasulullah. But, and I don't say this to be divisive, I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. I'm not here to incite people. I'm not here for people to make fun of other people and think they are better than other people. Can you brother sleep with the water bottle, please? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what I'm about to say is not so we can make fun of anybody else. But none of the Ahlul Bayt taught Rasulullah. And the reality of it is, nor did any of the Sahaba. None of the Sahaba had the ability to teach Rasulullah. And I'm going to narrate a few ahadiths to help illustrate why Rasulullah was being portrayed as an illiterate while others were being portrayed as better than him, in order to bring the status up a few by diminishing the status of Rasulullah. And this is not my opinion, this is clear ahadiths that exist in Ahl Sunnah's books. And I'm going to go to a website. You know, a lot of times if you're ever doing this, you're doing tahqiq and Sunni Shia issues, just to better yourself or for historic knowledge, you'll see a Shia alim, or you go to a Shia website and they'll give this quote, oh, page this, of this, of this. I never use those. The best thing is to go straight and directly to the source themselves. And there you can see in black and white, rather than it being referenced towards somebody else. So, my favorite website to go to when I enter these debates, www.sunnah.com, made by Ahl Sunnah and Jama'ah. It has all the 6 Sahah there, as well as the books of history in Arabic and in English, posted by them. And there's a clear narration from Aisha. Go, book of Bukhari, because the books are there, you click it, and then you go to chapter 13, the 2 festivals. And then there'll be a list of hadiths in that chapter. Go Control F, put singing, or put girls, and then a hadith comes up. What does it say? Narrated from Aisha. Abu Bakr came to the house while 2 Ansari girls were singing beside Rasulullah and Aisha and talking about ancient tales, giving poetry and singing and dancing. Here, when Abu Bakr sees this, he comes in angrily protesting, musical instruments of the shaitan in the house of Allah's messenger. The Prophet looks back at him and says, oh Abu Bakr, this is a day of Eid, and for every narration there is a day of Eid. So here what's happening in a clear ahadith. Someone is teaching Rasulullah. The Prophet is sitting. I think none of us here have ever sat with our wife and then had girls singing songs of Jahiliyyah days on a day of Eid. Nonetheless, this act is directed towards Rasulullah. It's not my opinion, it's not this is what exists. And Abu Bakr is the one who gets upset. And Abu Bakr is the one who teaches Rasulullah fiqh, because it's haram on many levels. The music is haram, the girls singing and dancing is haram. And then he's also teaching Rasulullah akhlaq. So it goes to show maybe Rasulullah is an illiterate. That is one situation where others are shown to have more knowledge than Rasulullah. We all are very familiar with the calamity of Thursday, narrated by Ibn Abbas. Sunnah.com, Book of Bukhari, chapter of patient 1, chapter of the patient, Control F, put deathbed. The hadith will come up. When the Prophet was on his deathbed and people were there, and he asked, bring me in a pen and paper so you will not go astray after me. We're all very familiar with what Umar said. He replies and says, the Prophet has become delirious. The book of Allah is sufficient for us. What does that mean? That means again, Umar is teaching the Prophet what is better for the Ummah. Umar is telling him, we don't need your will. For I know what's better for this Ummah. And what this Ummah needs is just the Quran. Again, he's teaching the Prophet. At the same time, there's so many different ways. If any of our elders were sitting here, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lengthen their lives on their deathbed, they ask for a pen and paper to write a will. Is it not wajib? It is. Are you not meant to give it to him? You have to. Secondly, if our elders is on their deathbed, or do you call them to their face delirious? Or mad? Or angry? Where's that sensitivity? From that angle. But the angle that I want to focus on today is Umar believed that he knew what's better for the ummah than Rasulullah did. Therefore, he taught Rasulullah. So we have two instances here where Rasulullah is being taught. And now this example is shocking. Honestly, I heard this example from a while ago. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And I honestly believe when I heard this example, I'm like, this is too much. I think this shaykh, with all due respect to the shaykh that's reciting it, his information is wrong. There's no way Rasulullah is suicidal. There's no way Rasulullah tried to commit suicide. Nonetheless, he gave the reference. And like I said, I like to read it. So he gave the reference, I went. Sunnah.com, Book of Bukhari, Chapter of Interpretations, Control F, Mountain. I'm not going to go into the whole hadith, but here, the Prophet standing on the mountain, he receives the verses, the first ones he read in the name of your Lord who created. He becomes hysterical, which goes to show you why maybe someone before that called him hysterical after that, right? He became hysterical here. Near his death, he's hysterical again. That's just the point. Nervous, timid, scared, he goes towards Khadija to comfort him and support him. Okay. Khadija tells him, I have my cousin, Waraka bin Nawfal. Who is he? He became Christian during pre-Islam. So what's going on again here? Rasulullah is having to be taught of his nubuwwah from a Christian. From a Christian, the cousin of Khadija. And it doesn't end there. It continues to say, and just so you don't think I'm paraphrasing it, divine inspiration. When it was paused for a while, the Prophet became so sad when he did not hear anything that he went to throw himself off the mountain. Jibreel would come, remind him, you're Rasulullah. And this happened on several occasions where the Prophet continued to go to the mountain to throw himself, but the Jibreel would stop him. It's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I don't say that. I'm not saying that to be insightful. And for our brothers here, I'll say it again. I'm not saying this so you can make fun of anyone else. This is just clear literature and history. And we have to defend our Prophet. We have to have ghira over the Prophet. If the Shaykh said this about Rasulullah, we have to say, no, this is impossible. This is against our aqidah. If certain aspects of the Shaykh spoke of this. And a lot of times Shias are said, okay, you Shias, when you talk about Rasulullah or you talk about Amir al-Mu'mineen, you make it seem as if they're superheroes. This can be easily disputed, no problem. We won't get into there. But maybe we make them superheroes. Is that not better than making them subhuman? Is that not better than making our Prophet illiterate and suicidal? Can you imagine? Here, I'm not saying Rasulullah has ilm al-ghayb. I'm not saying Rasulullah he split the mood. I'm not saying. I'm saying he's sane. He has the mental capacity to think and reason. I'm simply saying he can read and write. And now you're telling me I'm doing ghulu? I'm exaggerating the capacities of the Prophet? By saying he's mentally healthy? By saying he doesn't belong in a royal hospital? This has become a position of praising him too highly? It's absolutely incredible. And the reason that's done is we push him down so we can bring others up. Push him down so we can bring others up. And if this brother here who leads this Hussainiyah or Hajj Hassanain, if he ever had a mental issue, or I ever had a mental issue, could I speak on this number? I'm in a position where I'm suicidal. If I'm a teacher, if I'm a lawyer, if I'm a prime minister, if I'm leading a youth club, I cannot be put in a position of power if I have mental tendencies towards suicide. Not once, but on numerous occasions. This is what's incredible. And we can all agree to this. What does the Quran describe the Prophet? He is Rahmatul Alameen. The fadl of Allah upon him is great. The Prophet says, I did not come but to perfect the morality of mankind. And he surely conforms himself to a sublime morality. He is the greatest creation. All this. And he's still suicidal? I'm not suicidal. I know how to read and write. Astaghfirullah, does that make me better than Rasulullah? It means that anyone, any person can be looked at as if he's on a higher level. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Secondly, what's the greatest sin in Islam? Shirk. Secondly is hopelessness. A person who goes towards suicide is what? Hopeless. Rasulullah went towards suicide not once, but on numerous occasions. At the very least, we say Rasulullah's ma'soom always. Ahl Sunnah and Jama'ah, they say Rasulullah, some say he's always ma'soom. Others say no, he's only ma'soom during times of nabuwah. He's receiving wahi. This is a position when he becomes suicidal at this moment. Abasa anta what? When he turned away from the blind man, he's doing tabligh. He's doing the position of a Nabi. This is the position when he practices poor akhlaq. So he's not even ma'soom when he's doing the work of a prophet. Which one of us, if a blind person entered the Husainiyah, we would treat him poorly? Much less Rahmatul Alameen would do that. And I can start ahadith after ahadith after ahadith. The Prophet says go to China to get knowledge, etc., etc., etc. With a Prophet that says something like this: sleeping with knowledge is better than offering prayer in ignorance. Does that sound like a person who would not know how to read and write? Emphasizing deen, emphasizing ilm, in pursuit of ilm. But it's our ignorance. Amir al-Mu'mineen, who is his teacher? Rasulullah. He comes and he says, the Jews and the Christians are not our enemies, but it's our own ignorance that is our enemy. It's our ignorance. And don't think for a second, we could be guilty of the exact same thing. Maybe Ahl Sunnah and Jama'ah are guilty of if they don't read history and they don't read tarikh. Because how much do we read? How much do we look into our faith? How many pages of Quran do we read a day or a week or a month? How much do we know? Or are we just lucky enough to be just born in this madhab and enjoy these majalis? So what's my message tonight? I am here to try to encourage and motivate everyone to simply read a bit. By reading a bit, you gain a bit of confidence in your faith, you gain a bit of power, you know who you are, and that way you go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you're basing it on ilm. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Hajj. It's okay. It's going to be hard to speak if people are drinking tea. Please forgive me. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And people expect that there will be some great abid, great worshipper without any practice, without reading. Let me ask you, which athlete is amazing without practicing? Which student gets A's without practicing? Which lawyer is amazing without studying? Which doctor is great without experience? Why do we expect deen to come so easily to us? Oh, I want to see the angels. I want to see a miracle. I want to be... But there's no effort put. There's no effort. If you want to develop religiously and you want to develop spiritually, it takes practice. It takes effort. It takes energy. It takes time. It will not just come to you. It doesn't work like that for being a soccer player. It doesn't work like that for being good at PlayStation. It doesn't work like that for being a good student or good at any profession. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes dedication. It takes patience. Anyone that goes to the gym, you can't go to the gym and get big without training hard, without putting energy, without working. It's not just gonna happen like this. You gotta practice. So today we're gonna here to set up a quick. Everyone has to make a promise to themselves. I'm gonna read 2 pages of the Quran a day. I'm gonna read 1 page of the Quran a week. Make a commitment to your ma'soom tonight. That the key is to always move forward, even if an inch. But that's better than moving backwards. So tell yourself, I want to better myself through ilm. So I have to learn one thing and move forward to that. Every once a week. Okay, this week I'm going to read, in 1 week I have to read 10 pages of the Quran or of a book or anything. And by doing that, you'll be surprised with how much you learn. If you tell yourself every day, I just need to read 2 pages. And the Quran even says it. In a verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and says, chapter 73, therefore read what is easy of the Quran. In continuation of that verse, therefore read as much of it as it's easy for you. Allah is not asking for much. If not the Quran, history, whatever aspect you enjoy, look into it, read it, better yourself, gain that ilm, gain that knowledge, and commit to it. There's another chapter of the Quran that reads, we have not revealed this Quran to you so that it may be a burden. I'm not here telling you to stress yourself out or overburden yourself, but to make a commitment to better yourself. And that's so easily done. It's done simply by telling yourself, I'm gonna read these few verses a day, I'm gonna read these 2 pages a day. And by telling yourself that, you'll be amazed with how far you get along. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And I'm not telling you, the Imam also says, do not impose worship where it becomes a reluctance. Don't overkill yourself. Just find a fair and humble balance, because if you worship too much, you can make the religion detested by you. You won't enjoy going towards ibadah. No, find your balance, find your comfort zone, and strive towards that. And then by doing that, maybe we can be described like the companions of Imam al-Zaman are described when it's said, they are monks at night and lions in the day. And Imam Baqir beautifully says, the most beloved deed to Allah is the one where a servant is persistent on it, even if it is small. Pick a small deed, a small amal, be persistent in it. Now, which monk on that night and that lion on that day came out to support his brother Abu Abdullah? Which lion and which monk during the night? Abbas came to ask his brother, let me go out, let me go fight. Hussain tells him, no, we need you here. We need you to stay here. You are my flag bearer. You are my support. Abbas continues to say, let me go fight. Let me go towards the enemies. Hussain says, and then they start hearing the cries of the daughters of Muhammad wa al-Muhammad. Hearing the cries of Sukaina screaming out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. And then Hussain tells Abbas, okay Abbas, go at least, just get them water. I only give you permission to go get water. And then here Abbas charges towards that Euphrates river. Now remember the story of Nabi Musa. Nabi Musa charged towards that water, the Nile, so he can split it, so he can run from the army. Here Abbas charges towards that river, the Euphrates, but he splits the army to get to that water. Upon getting to that water, he fills his sack up, he fills his water sack up, and he says, and he holds the water in his hand, and he says, Hussain is drinking the syrup of death while I drink cool fresh water. And then he throws that water back into the Euphrates. And now I want you all to think of this hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's a hadith Qudsi. He comes and he says, when I love someone and he comes to me through nawafil, and I will love him, I will be his eyes with which he sees, I will be his ears with which he hears, I will be his hands with which he strikes. So when Abbas's hands are struck, whose hands are those? And then as he continues to go forward and he continues to fight, and then Abbas grabs the water in the skin, and then a rider coming back strikes off his right arm. Abbas takes the flag with his left arm and carries the skin using that, and then he cries out, by God, they have cut off my right arm, but I will continue defending my Islam. Qata'u yamini, but I will continue defending Islam. Now remember that hadith I mentioned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the hand of the one who prays nawafil. Does Abbas not pray nawafil? Is Abbas not beloved by Allah? And then as he goes forward, now his left arm is cut. Now he grabs that water skin and he puts it towards his chest as he's riding forward. And then Harmala shoots that arrow into the eye of Abbas, and then another spear hits the water. When the water pours, it is said that the water skin was crying for Sukaina. And without water, he did not have the energy to move forward. And then here Sayyid al-Zahra says, when Abbas fell off that horse, always remember, how did he fall without having any hands to protect him on his fall? And then Abbas was struck on his holy chest, and then he was hit with an iron club over his head. Then the moon of Bani Hashim was struck, and then he cried out, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. And here Imam Hussain charges forward, seeing his brother in that position. And then Abbas, hearing those footsteps, he says, oh, please leave me, please leave me. I wish to see my brother one last time. Imam's heart was broken at that instant. His brother, his own brother, didn't recognize he was. He tells him, oh Abbas, it's me, your brother Hussain. At this moment, Abbas, he wiped the blood off his eyes, and then Hussain put the head of Abbas on his lap, and then Abbas threw his head onto the ground. This happened once and twice and 3 times, and then Hussain comes and says, oh Abbas, why do you keep throwing your head onto the floor? And then Abbas replied, because right now my head is on your lap, but in a little while, whose lap will your head be placed on? And then Hussain goes to grab Abbas, and he wants to take him back to that camp. And here Abbas tells him, oh no Hussain, I can't bear looking at Sukaina without bringing water. Please leave me. But how hard is it for Hussain at that moment to leave his brother behind on the ground? How difficult must it have been for a heart as big as Hussain to leave his brother on that field? And then he picks up that flag without Abbas. He charges back towards that tent, and Ruqayya, seeing that flag of Abbas, her uncle always went into battle and came back victorious. She was expecting her uncle Abbas to come back, and then she sees that is her father Hussain, and here she says, I do not want any more water if you only give me back my Abbas. And then Hussain replies, they have broken my back. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be of those who have ghira for Rasulullah. Allow us to be of those who can defend Rasulullah. Give us the honor of defending Rasulullah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be of ibaduhu salihin, the habba of Muhammad wa al Muhammad, the shi'as of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the muntadhirin amam sahibi wa asri wa zaman. Sallu ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. إن شاء الله.